So if you do have an empty chair or seat next to you, please allow somebody to sit next to you. We have a full agenda tonight. The governor will be here shortly, but in the meantime, let's enjoy some music. And if there are any seats, please let somebody sit in the meantime. Thank you. Helping clear the aisles, and please pay attention as we take the fire safety code that we need to follow. Thank you. Thank you to the West Trenton Fire Company for being our hostess tonight. Can we have a round of applause? My name is Marilyn Rivera, and I will be your moderator this evening. And I am joined by my colleagues, Manny, Brandon, and Kelly. They will all be helping this evening get your questions answered. The governor will be sharing his plan with you on how to make New Jersey both fairer and stronger, and including his budget plan for next year. He will then answer your questions. We want to get through as many questions this evening, so let's get started. Everybody, please help me give a big round of applause to our governor, Phil Murphy.
We're very thrilled with that. I do have a little bit of a job to do. I didn't slip me the last minute. So please bear with me. All right, so I would like to introduce to you some elected officials that are here tonight. from Ewing Township, Ewing Councilwoman Kathy Waller. Trenton Councilman Jarrell Blakely. Town Councilwoman Michelle Leaptag. And a great friend of mine with CWA, so that's a shout out for CWA. Assembly Anthony Varelli. A union labor friend of mine in the Carpenters Union, right? Anthony, go way back. Ewing Councilwoman and Vice President of Council Jennifer Keys Maloney. Assemblyman Dan Benson. Ewing Councilman David Schroeth. Senator Linda Greenstein. And I just saw our County Executive Brownie Hughes came in. Brian, thank you very much for being here. So, and I'm not going to waste any more speech because I know everybody's here to welcome the governor. Oh, Senator Turner. Also for Assemblywoman for Lena Reynolds Jackson. Thank you. So now that the senator has arrived, and I apologize, Senator, I didn't see you come in, and but this time I would like to introduce you to introduce the governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank all of you for being here tonight on this wonderful Monday night. There's no place I'd rather be. I'm just so privileged, and we all are, that we have Governor Phil Murphy with us, because he could have been in 40 districts tonight, legislative districts, but he chose the 15. That just goes to show how smart he is, because the 15th legislative district is the best district in the state. And this governor, we've been waiting for 8 years. Finally, we're going to see fundamental tax fairness. I have introduced the millionaire's tax since 2011. That millionaire's tax reached Governor Christie's desk 5 times. We in the legislature voted and passed it 5 times, but it was vetoed 5 times. So when Governor Murphy was elected, I said, finally, we're going to see tax fairness and equality in this state. Whether taxes, we all know, nobody wants to pay. But we know in order to have a civilized, quality of life government in this state, we have to pay taxes. But taxes should be based upon one's ability to pay. And we cannot continue to allow this system, the tax system that we have in New Jersey, to coddle the wealthy. We all know that budgets have to be balanced, but we want to balance the burden as well and make sure everybody pays their fair share. So I'm just so delighted that we have another governor who is going to be providing the tax fairness in New Jersey that we need. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you. Most of you have met him, but I'm going to present him to you tonight, Governor Phil Murphy.
With us today. What a treat to be here. I'm sorry I left my green t-shirt at home. I won't make that mistake again. I don't want the red or the purple or the other colors to get on me for saying that. Senator Turner, thank you so much for your leadership, for your passion, and the way you just framed that argument on tax equity and tax fairness. So thank you for that. And put these in a place of honor. I was also happy to see no one had to take theirs off to give this to me. So keep this a G-rated operation. But Senator, thank you to all the elected officials. My deepest appreciation for being here tonight. I don't know where Mayor Steinman went, but I want to thank Bert for hosting us. Right, he's in my seat. Okay. Thank you. We met when it was cold, dark, and lonely. We had a very reflective meeting 1,000 years ago. It feels like that. It's probably 5 years ago at this point. Bert, but I really appreciate your support and leadership to all the elected officials. Thank you, Hosannas. We have not one, not two, not three, not four, but not one, but two, but three, but four members of our cabinet with us tonight. Importantly, you ready for this? Yeah. The Commissioner of Banking and Insurance, Marlene Curry, is in the house. Human Services Commissioner Carol Johnson is in the house with us. The Department of Transportation Commissioner and the Chairwoman of the Board of NJ Transit is in the house. And our treasurer, who knows this district very well, the one and only, the person who keeps the books balanced, Liz Boy, is in the house. And to each and every one of you, it means more than you know to me and to us that you would all come out on a school night like this. I want to echo Marilyn's very appropriate thanks to this firehouse and to this company for hosting us. We put them with first responders on a pedestal. They were yelled at and disrespected for 8 years. And we've turned the page. I want to please let them join me in thanking them. So what I want to do is just briefly give you a sense of what we're up to, both generally and specific to our budget. And then we'd love to throw it open to questions, comments, advice that you all have. Again, we got Kelly, Brandon, Manny, and Marilyn have the microphones. They will find you out. And importantly, if we don't get to your question, are we writing questions down tonight or not?
Yes, OCR will be also taking OCR.
Okay, OCR, there we go, over there. So listen, those folks right there, if we don't get to your question, track them down afterward. I don't mean that literally, I mean, don't follow them home or anything. Get your question to them because we pride ourselves in getting back to people. So if you give us your contact information and your question, and we don't get to you, first if we get 8 questions on NJ Transit, we'll probably pick an NJ Transit question and try to answer generally those questions. We may not get to each and every one of your questions. So please make sure we follow up. So we've been in office now for about 16 months. So far, so good, right? So let's remember a couple of points that we can't forget as it relates to context. Why did we get elected? We got elected to fix the economy, which means not only grow the economy, but to make it fair again. I used to say this in the town halls on the campaign. If you drew a grid in your mind's eye, and above the line was fairness, below the line was unfair. This side was growth, this side was no growth. We were in that box as a state under Governor Christie you would not want to be in. No growth and huge inequities across economic lines, across in particular racial and gender lines. And organized labor in particular, I'm not just saying this because there's a lot of brothers and sisters here tonight, was completely ignored, at best, in many cases at best. So we got elected to fix that, to get this place growing again, and to make it fair again. And like a lot of things in life, there's not a lot of glamour doing that. There's not a lot of poetry. There's not a lot of romance. It's waking up every day. If we were a football team, we're running 3 yards off tackle, day in and day out, trying to step by step move this state to the place we know it can be, should be, must be, and will be. And essentially, overwhelmingly, it's about the middle class. We are the quintessential middle class state. As it goes, we go. And by the way, I grew up looking up to the middle class. I come from a working poor family outside of Boston. Please don't hold that against me. Not the working poor part, but the Boston part. I will tell you right now, I will not answer any questions related to professional sports teams. Don't even bother asking me. But I was in a family that looked up and hoped one day we would get into the middle class. Never mind the folks of whom we have far too many in the state in poverty, who want to finally find those ladders to get in first to the working poor or Alice cohort and then into the middle class. So when I say we're a quintessential middle class state and as it goes, we go, that also means the folks who look up, who are trying to get into it. And so that's who we are. And we've said from the get-go, we stand for a stronger and fairer New Jersey that doesn't work just for some, but it works for everybody. Or put differently, we say this a lot, we don't make economic progress without social progress, and likewise we don't make social progress without economic progress. And think about that for a second. If we grow the pie, but we don't make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie, what good will that be? Talk about a hollow victory. Alternatively, unless we can figure out how to grow the pie, no matter how many good ideas for programs and steps and policies we might have, we won't be able to find the money to fund those important steps. So we both have to grow the pie, and we have to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. Somebody on the campaign trail, a Republican I might add, tagged me as a pro-growth progressive. I'll take that. I'll take that. Right? It also proves that we can dispel that myth that you either grow the economy or you're progressive or you're fair, but you can't be both at the same time. That's on a long list of myths that are completely false. And New Jersey is proving and will continue to prove together that we will achieve both growth and be proudly progressive. So we didn't wait for this budget. We didn't even wait for last year's budget. So we got in there, we said we would fund Planned Parenthood. We funded Planned Parenthood, and we continue to fund it. We said we would fight for a $15 minimum wage. We're on the path to a $15 minimum wage. We have the strongest equal pay law in America, the strongest sick leave pay law in America, the strongest family leave law in America. We have the strongest gun safety laws in America. We have the 11th largest population in America, the 4th smallest state geographically, means we're the densest state in America, which means you can't get a B+ on the environment. This is you gotta get an A, it's a pass-fail, and I'm gonna tell you we have the most progressive environmental policies of any state in America. We reject completely the us versus them politics coming out of Washington. We reject completely this wrong-headed, cruel immigration notion of breaking families apart, of crushing the dreams of dreamers. We are the most forward-leaning, progressive immigrant state in America. We welcome immigrants to the state of North Carolina. It's another myth. believe that either we're going to be okay or you're going to let all these folks in and we won't be okay anymore. That's just not true. Look at the base of the Statue of Liberty, that great poem by Emma Lazarus written in the 1880s. That's the America that I know, that's the New Jersey that we are and will continue to be. So we didn't wait for our budget to get going. I just signed on Friday my 250th bill. 250th bill. Tomorrow I'm signing 3 more. 2 of them, by the way, for animal rights. One of them is a pro-labor, pro-apprenticeship bill, which is needed in the seat part of our town. And so we haven't waited around for our budget, but this year's budget, the budget I proposed a couple of months ago, I think encapsulates most of what we stand for. It's a continuation of a lot of stuff we've done, but I think it crystallizes it even better than we had before. We called it, as you can see up here, a blueprint for the middle class. So I just want to give you a minute or two on the budget before we throw it open to questions. Does that sound all right? It's built on 4 simple pillars. So I want to just make sure you know what those are. Number 1, we have to prove that we can tighten our belt and save money at the state level. Because we can't have any credibility if we don't live that, not just in words, but in actions. So our budget, pillar number 1, is year-over-year real savings, year-over-year, of $1.1 billion. Year-over-year. This is not funny money. This is real. Put it in the bank. The treasurer has certified with her own hand that this is real savings. 200 million or so are from departmental savings across a whole variety of departments, but the biggest bucket is in healthcare, in the delivery of healthcare for our public sector employees. And unlike the last guy who screamed a lot, tried to jam things down people's throats, that's not who we are. We said, you know what, we want to find a way to be more efficient in delivering healthcare, but not make you all, the folks who are receiving the healthcare, pay more or accept lesser coverage. There's a lot of folks out there who think that's the way to save money in healthcare. I'm not one of them. When you sit at a table together and you negotiate through the collective bargaining process, which is sacrosanct in labor, you can find common ground. And we have found common ground. Hetty Rosenstein is with us and a bunch of CWA folks. They have been extraordinary to pick them out as an example. And by the way, Michelle and others are here. That's not to say they're easy marks, man. They are fierce advocates. All the public sector unions come in at that table and they are tough. But the fact of the matter is we're at the table together. We respect each other. We roll up our sleeves. We try to find common ground. I can't say enough good things about that process. And by the way, we presented our budget 2 months ago. That's not the end of history. We're continuing to work on more savings. So pillar number 1 is savings, real savings of $1.1 billion year over year. There are more savings, but some of them are one-off, so I don't want to get into those, but that's a real meaningful amount of money. Second pillar, under the last administration, our credit rating got downgraded 11 straight times. 11 straight times. And credit rating agencies don't operate in a V mindset. They don't go down and then come back up when you have a couple of good quarters. They go down, you know, the University of Miami, that big U on the football side of the football, that's what the credit rating looks like. They go down and you stay down, and you hope you can stay at the bottom of that fat U for a while, and then you regain credibility and come on back up. So our second pillar is to try to regain credibility, to try to draw a line under this free fall. And we get there by a number of things. One is we got a big surplus in our budget that we presented. If we get the budget we presented, it'll be the only years in the state's history back to back where we would have a surplus of over $1 billion in 2 years in a row. That's a big deal for them. It's a big deal for us. Because very simply, if our credit rating goes back up again, we borrow money more cheaply, we borrow a lot of money. That goes right to the bottom line. That's a big deal. We've cut back, we haven't cut out, but we've cut way down on one-shot, one-time revenues. which we used to live on as a state. We'll take it if it sits there, but we can't, that's not going to be the bread and butter of how we fund our state budget. We've cut way back, not completely yet. I'd like to get there completely, but we will someday, on fund diversions. Have you heard of those? You think you're paying for one thing, and it turns out the money got taken to something completely else. And it's usually a sloppy reason. Diane, to her credit, I'll pick on Diane at NJ Transit and Department of Transportation has ended a big diversion from the Turnpike Authority to NJ Transit. That's what they did. So that's the second pillar, restore fiscal stability. First one, save some money. Second one, fiscal stability. Third one is the big one, continuing the all-in investment in the middle class. And again, remember what we inherited, a fiscal mess and a middle class that was somewhere between ignored and ravaged. So beginning last year and with this budget this year, we are unwinding that and we are investing in the middle class again in a big historic way and importantly in the affordability to be in the middle class in this state. We gotta make sure people say, you know what, the equation is balanced, it's fair. I can live here, I can afford to live here. So one of the big pieces, huge investment in public education. So last year we put in $350 million more. By the way, the Christie administration underfunded the K through 12 formula by over $9 billion. So we're now chopping our way back. So last year, another $350 this year. In our proposed budget, $206. And we're slowly but surely, I want to give a shout out to County Executive Brian Hughes is in the house. Brian runs a great ship here in Mercer County, and it is one of 2 counties where every community K through 12 this year will have more money from the state than they got last year. That's a big deal. We need to have more of that. We'll continue to expand pre-K. Not only deepen it in the communities where we started last year, but expand to more communities. We're making increasingly community college free for everybody. Begin with those in the most need. Right now, 13,000 students of all walks of life. Beginning in September, 18,000 students. Based on need, will go to community college free of charge. And they will be spread across all of the county colleges in 19 of the 21 counties. We're putting more money in computer science for all, tuition assistance grants for higher education, the Educational Opportunity Fund. So education is a huge piece of our investment in the middle class. The other huge piece is transportation. Education and transportation. Our budget was $407.5 million, I believe, to the penny from the state invested in NJ Transit. Slowly but surely, NJ Transit is finding its way. If we think New Jersey is the turnaround story of America, NJ Transit is the turnaround story of New Jersey. Ray Green, I'm always going to remind myself, in particular, it was the rail side that was devastating. And that's a fact. Management that wasn't qualified, the state gutted its funding. We weren't making our mark on the safety requirements from the feds, and we let our engineering classes leave the whole pool of engineers go down, down, down. I was honored today. Ray was with me. Big deal. I attended the first graduating class of 4 engineering graduating classes this year alone. Whenever it is I'm done with this gig, I don't think I'm going to be qualified to be a rail engineer. They went to school for 17 months. 17 months. We had a graduation ceremony today. It isn't just NJ Transit, it isn't just rail, but it's infrastructure. It's owning the location that we have. I talk a lot about the innovation economy and the infrastructure economy. The innovation economy is who we are. The infrastructure economy is where we are. It isn't a Democratic or a Republican thing. If you're dealt the hand that we've been dealt, with a location between the largest market in the world and one of the largest in the country, the density that we've got, moving people and things around is not a passing interest in New Jersey. It's existentially important. And we're getting back to that. So education, transportation, healthcare, making it more affordable, right? It is battling the opioid scourge, which is killing us. It killed us in urban communities long before it got the front page of newspapers. That must be said. It's workforce development, it's job training, it's homestead rebate, making sure that folks, particularly retirees, whose kids are no longer in public school here, making sure that they say, you know what, this is still a place I can afford to be. So Speaker Coughlin, to his credit, would prioritize that homestead rebate bucket of money we put in last year, $283 million last year. We're putting another $283 million this year. Right? New Jersey's never going to be a low-cost state to live in or do business, but would better darn well be a good value for money state, right? So you pay a premium to be in a state like New Jersey, but you get back a quality of life, public education, transportation, all that goes with it. A thing on education that I just want to remind us all, number 2 rated school system in America. Number 1 in physics instruction, number 2 in chemistry, number 1 in foreign language participation by a mile based on Save the Children ranks New Jersey the number 1 state in the nation to raise a kid. We are rated as having the safest hospital systems in America. We've got the location, we've got the quality of life. We're the most diverse state in America. Mr. President, we wear that as a badge of honor. I can keep going, but the third pillar is an all-in investment in the middle class. Pillar 4, and there are only 4, in case you're looking at your watches, figuring out what time dinner is, or maybe even breakfast tomorrow morning. Pillar 4 is tax fairness, tax equity, right? And Senator Turner made the case better than I can. A big chunk of that, to the tune of almost $450 million, is a millionaire's tax. If we're going to accomplish the investments I talked about in that third pillar, we can't do it without a millionaire's tax. There's just no 2 ways about it. And I'm not a class warrior, particularly at a time we've got a president who divides us versus them. I'm not going to do that and hold it against people who have done well and lived their version of the American dream, and that's a bad thing. That's not what this is about. What this is about is fairness, equity, balancing the playing field. Folks who are doing really well did extremely well under the last governor. They're doing great under this president. I can't justify making an all-time historic investment in the middle class and then continuing to make the middle class pay for that. Take it on the chin. That doesn't compute with me. If we accept the middle class was ravaged or best ignored, and we're now making those investments, we got to ask the wealthiest among us to come on in, join us, pay a little bit more. And by the way, importantly, everybody will do better, including them. Right? When the middle class is strong, thriving, growing, prosperous, everybody does well, including the folks at the very top of the world. Couple of the smaller pieces on the tax fairness pillar, but they're important. Number 1, if you are an opioid manufacturer or distributor, we're going to ask you to pay a per pill tax to help us pay for the opioid program. I think that's also what we're doing. And then lastly, if you're an employer and you're not giving your employees health care, and you're a big company and you're making them go to Medicaid, we're going to say, no, with all due respect, that's not going to work. So we're going to charge companies who have 50 people or more under their employment where they don't give them health care, we're going to charge them $150 a head to help us pay for the Medicaid. So, Pillar 1, save money. Pillar 2, restore stability. Pillar 3, all-in investment of the middle class. And Pillar 4, the way we pay for that is tax fairness. I get an extra added kicker for you tonight before you throw it open to your questions and comments. Thanks to our treasurer. And by the way, I have to say this, we have an all-majority female cabinet for the first time in our Not that I was fishing for applause there. And I might add, by the way, not just gender diversity, the most diverse cabinet in our state's history, and arguably the most diverse cabinet in the United States of America. That's another reason. So here's another deal, and I think this sweetens the pot on the millionaire's tax. In all seriousness, Liz and her team, who have been great, have been going through what the numbers are looking like, and it looks like we're actually taking in somewhat more revenue right now in tax season than we thought we would, which is a pleasant surprise. So here's the deal. If we get a millionaire's tax, I'm going to commit to you right now in next year's budget that we're now, this is hot off the press, this is news right now, we're going to put another $250 million additional into property tax relief in this state. All of which, if we get that, will be good. We will, again, if we get the millionaire's tax, we will plow at least $250 million more than what I've already talked about into direct middle-class property tax relief. That's all I got. I cannot thank you enough for coming out tonight. It means more than you know. We have far more in common than that which separates us. I would love to invite our president into this town hall and just say, look around, Mr. President, this is the United States of America. And I'm so proud in New Jersey we're getting back on our feet. We're doing it together. We're proving that diversity is an extraordinary source of strength. Not something that divides us, the complete opposite. And that even though we have many challenges still ahead, and we do, I don't want you to walk out of here thinking we're spiking the football and we got all this figured out. We were dragged down a long road to get to this point. It's going to take us a long road to get out of it, but we will get out of it. We'll get out of it together, and there'll be no state that writes that history better than the great state of New Jersey. Thank you all.
Before we get started, just a couple of house rules. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Somebody will come to you and walk you to one of us to line you up for a question. Please don't yell the questions, and please be short and precise. As the governor mentioned, we may not get to all questions, and if we don't get to the questions, we have our Office of Constituent Relations. Can everybody stand to wait? We have Susie, Erica, Liz, Brian, and Vinny, who will be able to help you with your questions if we don't get to them. With that,
Let's go.
Let's get started.
Who's up? Please, we have a question right here. You have a question, ma'am? Sorry, come right back to you.
Hi, Governor Murphy.
Courtney, how are you?
Good. I began volunteering with Planned Parenthood after working with homeless 18 and 21-year-olds and seeing how important reproductive justice is to both individual and community economic development. I'm wondering that given the federal tax on the Title X program, what will New Jersey do to ensure continued access to family health care?
Right, let's hear it for Courtney. Courtney, what do you think?
I'm in Oakland.
Oh, you drive?
South Jersey sticks together.
There you go. All right. Let's hear it for the South. So the quick answer, Courtney, is first of all, we're funding Planned Parenthood, both retroactively but prospectively, and we won't get off that, I promise you. I also said in the campaign trail, I haven't been asked this in a while, And Title 10 is a new encroachment since I was campaigning. There's always a new nightmare with this guy. This is no exception. That if we had to, we would try to figure out smart ways to make up for federal deficiencies. I want to give Carol Johnson a particular shout out for having someone who worked in Washington and really helped us meander and find our way through a lot of the relations between federal healthcare and state healthcare. Her colleague right beside her, Marlene Carita, in the Department of Banking and Insurance, also worked with her so that if you're on the Affordable Care Act marketplace this year, you're paying over 9% less than you were paying last year. Approving that the Affordable Care Act has affordable in it as well. Secondly, we are joining legally. So our Rockin' Attorney General, Gavir Grewal, and his team, it's one of the 80-plus suits that we have joined. We're either leading, I don't think we're leading Title 10, we might be one of the leading. You might be able to know. Caramel, are we? We are one of the leaders. How many states? 10 or 20 states? So we're leading in that respect. And probably the third part is, I don't know, but we're going to have to figure this out together. We spend an enormous amount of our energy in our administration. The verbs I use are compensate, mitigate, litigate, stuff that's coming at us out of Washington. And in some cases, it's aided and abetted by the Republican leadership in Congress, and hopefully with the rebalancing of the House, that will lessen. And in other cases, it's direct legal affronts or executive action by the president. And Title 10 is right in the middle of this. But we will not relent on this, I promise you. Thank you for the question, Gordon. Here, Kelly, you're going to get this one right here, and then we're going to go. Brad, what do you got? I'm great. Why don't you hold that very close to you?
Sorry. My name is Lawrence Duncan.
Nice to see you, Lawrence.
Nice to see you as well. I work for New Jersey Transit, and this is in reference to what is underspent last administration. That went to CDA. They could have been used for transportation. Transit. Cut down to 90% of operation. And I would just like to know what this is on. I would appreciate you.
Let's hear it for Lawrence and everybody that indicates
So the answer is, I mentioned in very quick order. I'm not sure we can claw any money back from the last administration. That money is gone. But we can step up and put historic amounts in from the state in this administration, and we are. Last administration, by the way, gutted the state funding at one point by as much as 90%. And by the way, commuters had been paying fares that over that same period of administration increased 36%, which you all know. And as angry as I am about the track record in that last administration, I have to say this, the brothers and sisters in labor who went in there every single day working, kept their part of the bargain. They worked. They were the one shining light. Now you've got help. So the one thing, I can't change the past, but with frozen fare increases, if this budget is accepted, it'll be another year, frozen fare increases, so no increases. We've put, as I mentioned, $407.5 million in after a big slug last year. We've got the right management, beginning with our great chair. We're meeting the federal safety lines. I think we're much more, I was critical of our communications, even under our administration. That's getting better. But this is a massive system. As you know, it's the third largest commuter bus and rail system in America. And when you let it go, and it used to be consistently ranked #1 by assessment through the eyes of the commuters, the commuter and customer experience. And when you let it go for as long as it was let go in the last administration, this is a game now of your 3 yards off tackle every day. But I promise you we'll get there. Thank you, Lawrence, for the question. Okay, please. I'll come back to you all in a second.
I work for Camden, and as you can
Your name?
imagine, Oriana.
What year are you?
I'm a sophomore.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I am very concerned with higher education affordability. I know you spoke a little bit about that earlier. But in addition to that, what are you going to do to make sure that textbooks and course materials are also affordable and accessible?
Let's hear it first. So, I'm going to come here next. College affordability is a big big deal challenge. Again, something that we inherited. And I'm sick of seeing University of Maine advertising over the turnpike, come on up and give us a look. Our out-of-state tuition is lower than your in-state tuition. Enough already. We're going to change the equation, or I'm taking the billboard down. I hope it's the former, but we're already taking a lot of steps. So community college, I mentioned, which is less relevant for you, but relevant for many. Tuition assistance grants, educational opportunity fund celebrating its 50th year. Right? It has about 50,000 students it's touched. It was, in his words, the greatest act of his public service career. It was a bill that was proposed by then Assemblyman and later Governor Tom Kane, which is huge. I just signed some student financing, student loan bills a couple of weeks ago to help unburden the lending piece of this. Banana Caramel, have we done any on textbooks and materials? That's right. Thank you. So we signed a law last week directing the Department of Higher Ed or K through 12? K through 12, we should get to higher ed, right? To promulgate ways that you can actually get the course materials.
Are you taking pictures of?
Textbooks. I used to be a textbook salesman.
What are you video?
True story. So I'm operating against my own interests.
Really?
Great
Oh, I didn't know that.
Let's
Look
go.
up there. You're kidding me, right?
Hello.
You don't have to speak around, do you?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
why don't you?
Her name is Brenda Parrott.
Represento a Cosecha.
She's a representative of
Seat over here if you want.
De las licencias.
For licenses.
Hace año y medio que él estaba corriendo para el gobernador de New Jersey.
A year and a half ago, when you were running for governor,
So, él prometió que le iba a dar licencias de conducir a todas las personas indocumentadas.
you made a promise to provide licenses for undocumented immigrants.
Thank you.
¿Cómo puede él usar su liderazgo para que el presidente de la Asamblea, Coughlin, pueda pasar la ley de conducir para las licencias del Estado de New Jersey?
How can you use your power to persuade the legislature, president and speaker, to pass this legislation?
Thank you. Let's hear that question. I'm the same person, Marilyn, help me out. I'm the same person I was on the campaign trail. I want to get this done right now. If the legislators here will agree with, I need a bill to sign. Right. Right, so and I just say that I say that in a very constructive way. So much of what we do, I say this all the time, it takes a village. You know, you can't, no matter how good an idea I might have, or any of them, or any of the cabinet members, or county executive, or mayors, or council, and typically you've got to do things together. This is one of them. I hope we can do it sooner than later. I feel very passionate about this. I want to get it done. Access to driver's licenses for everybody, regardless of status.
Hi, my name is Vega, and I'm a member of ASES, which is an international organization composed of high school and university students of the World Mission Society Church of God. I first want to thank you for putting World Mission Society Church of God. I wanted to thank you first for doing so many things, for helping so many university students to get education, and seeing that you're motivating us to understand and see what's happening in the state. I wanted to know how can university and high school students get more involved?
I love that. Great question. Usually when someone pays me a compliment when they're about to ask a question, they're about to take a shot at me. Alina, imagine my pleasant surprise that you not only had a nice compliment, but you actually had a really good question, and you let me off the hook, so thank you. How do we get young people involved? I'll tell you right now, walk over it when it's over to OCR and make sure we know how to find it. That's probably a good piece of advice for everybody. And I don't say that as a political matter, I mean that as a governing civics matter. I've got 4 kids, 21, 19, 17, 15. I guess the silver lining of this president is their hair is on fire more than it otherwise might have been. in another time with another president. But if you look at turnout in elections, you're still going to see that youth lag significantly. You know, we did really well, but we were no exception in terms of the way the turnout looks. And I think finding ways to deepen engagement with youth is probably the biggest X factor we have in our society, not just in the state, but I would think so. But I think probably the best, smartest, quick thing is to let us know how to find you, follow us on social media, we're easy to find, and weigh in. You know, we correspond with folks all the time, and folks don't hesitate to tee off on us. They speak truth to power, none more so than youth. And I'd say the more youth involved we have, the better off, not just you're going to be or we're going to be, but our state will be. So thank you for that.
Governor, I know there are no shots here, because you know me, I would answer those, I would give the first time. First of all, thank you for the contract. Thank you for getting your pension out there. What I read today, there are you and the legislature. Okay. What I want to know is, what can we as citizens do? Because there's a lot of corporations out there making money, millions illegally. Is there anything that we can do to hold the corporations' feet to the fire?
Yeah, so great question. I see less illegal behavior than I see, for instance, tax policies out of Washington that allow corporations to make an outsized amount of profits. There was an article, I think it was on the front page. Yeah, I'm not an us-them person, right? So corporations, among other things, employ a lot of people in this room, right? So that's a good thing. Yeah.
They're making money fraudulently.
Well, I don't know about the fraudulent piece, but I would say this: the tax unfairness, the lack of fairness in taxes is appalling. There was an article, I think, on the front page of the Ledger today. It listed all of the Ledger, all the companies that didn't pay a dime of federal taxes. That's legal. I'm not sure I use the word fraudulent, but it's offensive. So one of the things I think you can do specifically, it's not directed necessarily at corporations, but a huge step in tax fairness is helping us get the millionaire's tax passed. Right? The question is, what can we do to get that? I think the answer is, if you're in an organization, and there's a lot of labor organizations here, my gut tells me that's a smart place to look to get engaged. That they will, the leadership of those organizations will have a sense as to, assuming that they support that, they'll have a sense of where they're going and what to do. But I'd speak out. And it isn't just about tax fairness and not just about the millionaire's tax. But that to me is the most obvious step that we can take right now that rebalances the field in the way that we want to get it for the middle class in this state. Thank you. Let's go.
And thank you for coming to my town to.
Are you Ewing?
I am.
Let's hear it for Ewing.
Governor, I'm also a state employee. I'm going into my 39th year.
Bless your heart. Where do you work?
I work for the Division of Behavioral Health Services, the state psychiatric hospitals.
Is that under yourself or under a tree?
Yes, under Department of
That's
Health.
under a tree, yeah.
Used to be under Human Services.
Yeah.
But my question is this: I'm concerned that I'm sort of feeling like I'm being forced to retire because I don't know what's happening to our health care. I had my 25 years in a long time ago when I was told I was, well, I was never in a union for 7.5 years, but now I'm in IBEW.
Okay.
But our fear is people who are ready for retirement, that we're being forced to retire because we don't know what's going to happen to the health care, and we don't know what's going to happen to those of us who had our 25 years in a long time ago, what's going to happen.
As long as I'm governor, you're not getting forced, number one, and number two, you're not going to get your health care screwed up. We're going the opposite direction. And I use Teddy as an example here. These are not easy conversations. taking it out on your hide is not our playbook. Others may want to do that, not me, and that, I'm not going to stand for that. I know the IEPEW, obviously, generally, I know the organization very well. I know the state component reasonably well. I don't have this sort of facile walking around numbers like I would with CWA or an AFSCME or a NJEA. The blanket statement is what I just said. You could choose to retire if you want to, but God knows, yeah, well, if you love your job, keep doing it, man. But you don't factor into that something's going to happen to your health care. That's not going to happen, right?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, I'm sorry. I'm here because I want you to know what's your point about the Trenton Public Schools. 4 weeks ago, they approved segregation to the immigrants, putting all the immigrants in one school in West Trenton. I'm sorry, you can hear me now, I'm sorry. So, a few weeks ago, Trenton Public Schools passed segregation. The way I looked at it, they violated the 14th Amendment to the civil rights to these immigrants to put all these kids in one school, West Trenton. Plus, I'd like to know if it's okay if you're appointing the state monitor so they can monitor the school board because they don't know what they're doing, making decisions that hurt the community. My name is Waldemar from Kilo, I was Waldemar from Kilo, I represented Guatemala Association in Latin America. So I'd like to know if you appointed any member of your staff to get see or
Okay. We got it. Thank you. Let's hear it for the question. So I would say this, we are, just say this to you, I want to come back to the more intelligent, specific answer on Trenton. We stand on the side of integration, not segregation. And as it relates to monitors, that's a decision we have to take very, very carefully. But, you know, we take enormous pride in school systems and boards of education doing the right thing. And we have to make sure that we monitor and make sure they do the right thing. Do you want to add anything to that, Senator? Can you help me out here? I heard. I'm standing 3 feet from this, I got it.
The problem we have in Trenton is that we will be opening a new high school, and that high school will not accommodate all of the students
Right.
that will be going into Trenton High. So they have made a decision that they're going to send students with English as a second language to a different school.
I don't know the specifics of the decision, but that doesn't feel right to me. One guy's opinion, right? Thank you, Senator. Okay. We'll look at it. Go ahead, man. How are you? Jan? I have a sister, Jan.
Good.
See, we're in the Hall of Fame already.
Okay, I'm of the LGBT community. My wife is here.
Where do you live?
In Ocean Grove, New Jersey.
God bless you. Ocean Grove's in the house.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm right on the block. We're in Middletown, so not too far from here.
And I know where you live, so I look into this because seniors.
Is this healthcare principally?
No, this is all kinds of protection because we can be removed from any kind of facility on grounds that now come under the heading of religious freedom. So the LGBT community, we're being sacrificed, any marginal person.
Sure.
So what is our state going to do to protect us, that we're not thrown out of hospitals, that we're well?
Well, I'll tell you something, that ain't gonna happen in New Jersey. It may happen in Trump's world, but it ain't gonna happen in this world. Well, like a lot of things, Christian Fuscarino here, who runs Garden City Hall. Come on up and join us, Christian. Nice to see you, man. What's your Christian? So LGBTQ rights generally would be right in the sweet spot of what I mentioned earlier, mitigate, litigate, compensate for a lot of stuff that comes out of Washington. Healthcare is a general matter, is an example of this. They try to destroy the Affordable Care Act. We pass laws to compensate for that. I'm not aware of the specifics, and I promise you we're going to follow up. Can you make sure we get information here? Anything you want to add in terms of particularly senior protection, Christian?
It's just that we're leading the nation right now on LGBT issues. You passed a number of pieces of legislation from, you've appointed the first transgender task force in the nation. Eric Potenza sits on that. You just allowed transgender troops to serve in the military on Friday. I'm sorry? The curriculum bill, we're the second in the nation that's going to be teaching LGBT curriculum in schools. So
all of which is great. I've not been asked the senior protection question before. So.
You're going to be on that is
Yeah,
in line.
I promise you, we'll be in the right place. I think it's largely, I don't need to say it, turns out. I think it's largely, thank you, by the way. I think it's largely stuff coming out of Washington that we have to compensate for. And if we need to, we'll pass laws and we'll do the right thing. You've got a legislature in both houses that's constructive and supportive.
Extreme urgency in this because seniors' longevity is not in our agenda. And tomorrow, and I just feel that I would like to see some kind of legislation be introduced.
Okay, I need to follow up here, is that all right? I promise you, though, we will have your back and we will not let you down. Okay?
Hi, Governor. How you doing?
I'm well.
By the way, you in resident in the house?
Yeah.
Mike.
Hey, Mike.
So you just saved the state somewhat bargaining with the unions, to health care. It's tough bargaining, but smart, right? Save everyone money. So, and it gets us off of Chapter 78. So my question for you is this a pattern that you can also export out to local governments? And as government, how can you help local governments save money through collective bargaining as well?
Let's hear from Mike. Good question. We've got 2 more minutes to go here, but this is an important one. I mentioned this in passing, that I presented my budget, I think, on March 6th. And the numbers that I just talked about earlier tonight, saving $800 million in collective bargaining and through the plan design committees with our public sector employees and union representatives, was as of that moment. And I think, Liz, it's fair to say that we're continuing that process, right? So even at the state level, that's a pattern that continues. But if you stop for a second and take that $800 million, there's probably about $400 million of local potential savings that could go along with that. So when you start thinking about the property, and that's up to the communities. We are the ultimate home rule state. I can't tell mayor X or Y, you got to do this or that. We can lead by example. We can make the case. But that is, I just want to reiterate, sort of from a property tax relief standpoint, you've got the homestead rebate of $283. I've just committed tonight, if we get a millionaire's tax, add another $250 million at least to that. The potential to play with locally $400 million in healthcare savings at the local level. You look at the amount of money we're putting into public education from the state side, remembering that on average 53% of everybody's property tax bill is public education. That's real money when you add all that up together. And so we're committed to not only being progressive, to growing, but we want to make sure that New Jersey is the ultimate affordable state for the middle class. Thank you, Mike. Couple more quickly. What's your name? Can you go right there, Ken?
Ken Walters.
Nice to meet you.
I have a question. I'm from Trenton Park.
Yes, sir.
Local 6. Okay, now it's better. I want to tell you, I speak for all firefighters, men, women, and seniors. My question to you is why are you looking into utilizing the $33 million of our relief money for the state?
Actually, one of the raises came earlier, and I didn't mean to. Again, I started by saying this when I thanked the firefighters who are hosting us here tonight, thanking them, and to all firefighters, police, first responders. I'm going first thing tomorrow to a Blue Mass in the morning, in fact, up in Patterson, having come from Trenton last week. I was at the Valor Awards 2 Saturdays ago. You were there. This is a fund that is 6 times over. It's got 6 times as much money as it needs. The way that the money gets put in there, I think, needs to be re-examined. I said this morning when I was asked this by the press, that's something that we owe firefighters to sit down and figure this out together, which we will do. It's a very fair point to raise, and I meant to raise it up front. I don't want anything to take away from the fact that we've got you all up on a pedestal. You risk your lives every day. You deserve our respect. So thank you.
From New Jersey. How you doing tonight?
Well,
I have to start by saying I love your shoes.
Thank you, man.
I had to say that. And my question is specifically about the immigrant detective, trust detective, that's on the AG website. The Attorney General put out, okay, and that you did directive.
Yeah.
Okay, the Attorney General said that you were going to be training the law enforcement how to treat when they stop immigrants on the road. When they get stopped, especially, as far as profiling, decreasing profiling. I've gotten 2 phone calls this week. One from a single mother who was stopped, given 7 tickets for running a yellow light. 7 tickets. She called me up crying, saying that she could barely pay her rent, and now because she doesn't have a driver's license, she is now being profiled in her city. She says she's concerned now for driving again. The second phone call I got was more disturbing. The gentleman admits, he said to me, Elliot, I was wrong. I was speeding. Give me the ticket. But when the police officer asked him, instead of license registration, asked him for his social security card, he was offended. He said, Elliot, I would pay the ticket. But for law enforcement to ask me if I have a social security card. And my third story is this. In Lindenwald, a gentleman was stopped last week, and like all of us, we asked, officer, why was I stopped? He said, because I know you don't have a driver's license. Well, how can a police officer know? So we need to address how do people, in any business, if you set a goal, you have to know how to measure it. You set up an executive order. Right now, I have attempted to measure the executive order by calling. It is it is such a hurdle to get some response. What can you do to get me to talk to the AG and fix it because it's broken?
Let's hear it. Great question. I agree completely with his directive. I know he's dead serious. By the way, it's the most forward-looking immigration directive in America. It uncrosses the wires that our president would like me to see crossed all the time, which is criminal intent and behavior, as well as immigration, on the one hand, and immigration status on the other. I know he's deadly serious about training. And I also know that the overwhelming amount of law enforcement are in this doing the right things every day. I gotta, beyond that, I gotta get back to you. Okay, what are you pointing at? Brad, what do you got? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Good. How are you?
Nick DeMarie from Hamilton. First and foremost, go Quakers.
Yeah. I know.
Secondly, my question is simple. I agree with your position that you campaigned on for legalizing marijuana in the state. And so I'm just curious to know, going forward, I understand that there are issues in the legislature, what the future marijuana legalization might be and what you might want to do to address that.
I'm going to disappoint you all because we are at curfew time. Somebody answer this, and then we got to bring it down. The answer is I don't know, Nick, yet. I got there not because of the revenues, not because of the romance. I got there because of social justice. We have the widest white, non-white gap of persons incarcerated in America. The biggest reason is low-end drug offenses. 600 people plus or minus, will be arrested in New Jersey this week for a low-end marijuana offense. 450 of them on average will be of color. That is completely, and their lives will be wrecked as a result of that. That's completely and utterly unacceptable. So I get there on the basis of we have worked really well with the legislature. Again, it's particularly, it is an absolute outcropping of the war on drugs. Let there be no doubt what this is. We worked very well with the legislature. We came very close. I think we were there in one chamber. We were probably a vote or two short in the other chamber. I'd like to get this back up on the boards sooner than later, even potentially this month. I don't know whether or not that's in the cards. I'm meeting with the legislative leaders, I think on Thursday. This will be probably topic number one. I want to again thank the firemen. I want to thank Ewing, Mayor Bert Simon, and the council members. Everybody's coming in.